Well, it's time for another Hot Air Sports podcast with me, Macca, and my good mate Mahon, and both wearing our Liverpool shirts this morning in a bit of solidarity after the weekend's shambles at Goodison Park by the officials.
Lost? No, we was robbed, mate. We was robbed. VAR, Jordan Pickford assault on our best player. It's just a shambles, mate. I'm sad, annoyed, and angry today. Sad, annoyed, and angry.
That's the title of this week's podcast. Sad, annoyed, and angry. Anyway, we'll talk a bit more about that soon. But, whoa, what a weekend of sport. Did you actually get off the couch on Sunday, mate?
No, mate. A huge dent in my couch. It's still there. I'm working it out. I'll work it out this week. I just basically sat on my couch all weekend and reminded myself a bit of you a couple of decades ago when you used to come over to my place and just yell, fetch me a receptacle, go on, give me something from the fridge. I did much the same with the missus over the weekend, mate. So much great sport. We had Bathurst, we had Test cricket, we had EPL, we had so much on. Of course, we had the rugby league. And I couldn't even text you about what was going on in the rugby because you were watching Bathurst all day.
I was, yes, quite right. It's one of the sporting events that my dearly beloved Michelle absolutely loves to watch every year. So there was no way I was going to interrupt that. And as the years have gone by, I've become a bit of a petrol head myself when it comes to supercars. So, yeah, I was made the call. We're going to record the rugby and watch it as soon as whoever crosses the line first does. So once Shane Van Gisbergen drove that Red Bull Holden over the finish line, it was on to the rugby. And, boy, what a game that was. And, again, we'll talk about that a bit shortly. Also watched a bit of baseball over the weekend. We're down to the World Series, the Rays and the Dodgers, which I think when we go back to the beginning of the championship series, I did say that, but then I changed it to the Braves.
You did.
My original call has come true. So Rays, Dodgers. We'll talk about what my picks are and the prospects a little later on. So yeah, good win for the Rays. 3-0 up against the baseball team from Houston, and they came back to bring it back to 3-3, and I thought, oh, here we go, this is all on. And then Tampa pulled one out in the end to win that series 4-3. And the other series also I didn't think was going to go anywhere near 7 games once the Braves pulled out to a 2-0 lead, but the Dodgers clawed it back game by game and took out game 7. So yeah, Rays, Dodgers, looking forward to that series. But yeah, watched a bit of baseball over the weekend as well, and a bit of NPC rugby in between motor racing and everything else that was going on. And also caught up with a bit of NFL on Monday afternoon, watching the mighty 49ers come have a good win over the Los Angeles Rams. It's always good to beat LA. Doesn't matter where you are from the rest of the country. It's always good to beat LA. So, yeah, that was my viewing. What else did you cast your eyes over?
Mate, I needed picture-in-picture. Remember when you used to be able to get picture-in-picture?
Yes.
What happened to picture-in-picture? Now they've got the, the mosaic on Sky Sport. Honestly, that was the way to go. There was just so much on. Of course, we're going to cover the EPL. Let's go to the EPL. There was a few games on over the weekend, and the weird results just keep coming, mate. It was so strange. A weird week of draws. Liverpool 2, Everton 2 in the Merseyside derby. Of course, there was the assault on Virgil van Dijk. We'll talk a little bit about that later. We had a winner, absolutely fantastic winner. I ran out of the room screaming, came back in, and it had been ruled off for offside, which was definitely not offside. So that sort of was a great start to that. And then I had to catch up with all the other games that went on. Couldn't believe this one. Did you see this one? Chelsea 3, Southampton 3. Yep. Chelsea 2-0 up. Looked amazing going forward again. Timo Werner just looked absolutely world class. But they can't keep goals going in at the other end. And Keeper had an absolute shocker again, absolute Barry Crocker. And 3-3. And Fat Frank is averaging close to 2 goals a game. So I can't see him lasting for too much longer. And then the result to end all results. Listen, a game they're calling West Ham Bull. They're calling Tottenham 3, West Ham 3. 72 minutes. Gareth Bale makes his bow for the second time as a Tottenham player. Comes on. It's 3-0 to Tottenham. 3-0 with 18 minutes to go. 82nd minute, West Ham goal. 85th minute, West Ham goal. 92nd minute, Bale misses a sitter. 94th minute, Manuel Lanzini with perhaps the goal of the season. An
It was a
absolute
belter, wasn't it?
screamer. Oh, and mate, and if you ever go, if you ever used to hang around the dancing halls of where all the boomers used to hang around, well, you'd see David Moyes. He gave it his best shot on the sideline, doing a little jig. He loved it, mate. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely fantastic game of football. 3-3. That was fantastic. So I loved the English Premier League. The results are just so unpredictable at the moment. Of course, I watch. Anything to say about that, mate?
I was just going to say, at the other end of the scale, in yesterday's games, by all accounts, the West Brom Burnley game was labelled the worst Premier League game ever in the history of the Premier League. So I'm glad
shots on goal.
Glad I didn't watch that one. A bored 0-0 draw.
and it's the first 0-0 draw this season.
It is. It's
the only 0-0 draw this season. So we can't really complain. We have had a lot of excitement in the English Premier League, but 0-0. Two pretty boring teams. I don't think there was one. Was there any shots on goal in that game?
I don't think there was, actually.
That's crazy. And then I watched my rugby league. Of course, there were two big games of rugby league. We picked the Raiders to beat the Storm on our last podcast, and I think the Raiders obviously played their grand final the week before. Bit disappointed in this. Half-time, it was 24-6. The Storm are into the grand final for the fourth time in 5 years. Cameron Smith will make his 8th appearance in an NRL Grand Final. Is absolutely amazing statistics. He's played like 7,000 games of rugby league or something, and this may be his last. Jerome Hughes and Ryan Pappenhausen were the stars for the Storm. So the Storm absolutely ran away with that one, 30 points to 10. And in the second game, it was a lot closer than I thought. The Panthers 20, the Rabbitohs 16. Penrith's multi-million-dollar punt on the Clearys a few years ago has marched them into their first grand final in 17 years. Nathan kicking them clear of Souths on the paddock, and Ivan matching wits with Wayne Bennett off it. 20-16 was a thrilling game. I loved the game. Kept me on the edge of my seat the whole night. But it was kind of a scrappy, muddling performance, and I think the Penrith Panthers are definitely going to have to improve if they want to match up with the Storm in the grand final, if they want to compete with them next week. Just another thing on the rugby league, of course, Eric Watson now going to jail. Of course he's not going to go to jail. He's a wealthy man. Wealthy people don't go to jail. He's appealing it. Him and Owen Glenn still fighting out in courts in the UK. Mate, just get a grip, really. I'm so glad he's out of the Warriors. Of course, I watched the Bledisloe Cup as well, mate. The Bledisloe Cup.
Just before we move on to rugby union, they had the Dally M Awards earlier in the week, and Jack Whiten picking up the gong.
Yes.
But a bit of a shambles there with the Daily Telegraph leaking the result prior to the actual event. That's a bit of a shocker, isn't it?
I think a lot of it because of COVID, it was a virtual ceremony. So there were some people there, there were some people not there. You couldn't tell who was there and who wasn't there because there was social distancing. Is he on the other side of the room or the other side of the country? It was a really weird style ceremony. I mean, the Dally M's, man, it means more to Australians than it does to us. For me, it doesn't really represent who the best player is. It's a point system. There's so many inconsistencies in it. I think it's more really to announce the best players throughout the year. The Warriors also getting a gong there from the general public, basically a big thank you gong. And Tohu Harris, second rower of the year as well from the Warriors, making it into that Dally M side of the year. So yeah, of course the Bledisloe Cup, mate. You finally caught it on delay, and what did you make of it? What did you make of the game?
Good game. I thought the All Blacks in general played very well. Still a few concerns around a few different aspects. Certainly in the attack, still passes going astray. I thought the All Blacks defended well, and definitely across the board. but yeah, and we'll talk a few bit more about individual players. Of course, there's one absolute superstar in the making, in Caleb Clark. But yeah, we'll talk a bit more about him shortly. On the NPC front, we were talking up a big Auckland-Tasman clash last week. We're waiting for that, the Battle of the Giants, and it turned out to be a bit of a damp squib, really, with Auckland just running away with it. I watched the first half and then turned on for the second half. Auckland got another try, and I thought, surely there's something more interesting to watch than this. It was absolute one-way traffic, and of course...
What's happened to Tasman?
Oh, I think it was just one of those days. Nothing, the normally reliable David Havili at fullback was kicking balls out on the full. Passes were going to nowhere. The forwards just didn't look coordinated in rucks and mauls, and basically it looked more like a training run for Auckland than it did an NPC game. And the other big result was Waikato, a point win over Canterbury, 16-15. So that's shaken up the top of the premiership table. Auckland now leading on 24, Waikato on 23. They've jumped up into second. Tasman have gone from first to third in 19. Wellington have snuck into the top four ahead of Canterbury, 19 points to Canterbury's 18. So a real shake-up in the Mitre 10 Cup. So another week coming up, so it would be interesting to see what happens in the games this week. I think the big one of the week will definitely be the North Harbour Auckland Battle of the Bridge. So let's see what happens there. And, of course, Waikato playing their Chiefs neighbours, Taranaki. So an interesting one in the NPC coming up this week.
Also in the Test match, mate, it's now 37 years, I believe, since the Wallabies have beaten the All Blacks at Eden Park. So that's going to continue. 37 years. Of course, the game ended 27-7. I think they had close to 40,000 at Eden Park, mate.
Definitely, it was over 40,000.
It looked like there was. Auckland is doing their normal thing though. There was only about 20,000 at kickoff. I think a lot of them came in late. But once again, man, it comes down to daytime rugby for me. I mean, I just love daytime rugby. We've been talking about this, you and I, for the last 2 decades since daytime rugby basically got kicked to touch when they came into the professional side of it. And 3 o'clock start, or 3 or 4 o'clock start. Everyone can be there. Good for the kids. Afterwards, you can go for a meal and a beer, whatever you want. And the rugby has improved dramatically because of no Jew. And I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it, mate? Just makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, as you say, it's not just me and you that have been screaming out for daytime rugby over the last couple of decades. I think a lot of rugby fans, because as you say, you get a drier ball and the play is a lot more open and frenetic. And it's just a better spectacle for all. But of course, we all know it's the TV dollar. That's what rules. The moolah rules the game. So I don't think we're going to be seeing too many more daytime tests in years to come. I'll be back at 7:35 kickoff. Too much hesitation. Anyway, on to different things now, and let's whip into some 2-minute hot hits, and we'll start with football. Liverpool have lost Virgil van Dijk pretty much for the season to a serious knee injury. Is that the end of Liverpool's EPL title prospects?
It's hard to say it's the end. I mean, it makes a significant dent in it, doesn't it? Because you got to think about where we were before we had Van Dijk, and we were nowhere near it. And we got him, and we were bloody close. And then we got Becker and goal, and we won. We won the whole thing. No one can take his place. I think what we have to do is just sort of bits and pieces it, maybe play a slightly different style, maybe play it different from midfield, maybe drop back a bit further. We've just got to find ways, don't we? There was so much going on in that game. This, for me, though, the assault by Jordan Pickford on Virgil van Dijk was the worst thing of the lot. And, I don't think he did it on purpose, but he was flailing all over the show, and he scissor kicked him and basically snapped his leg in half. And just because they were checking an offside, and if Virgil van Dijk, and I've seen that a few times as well, I couldn't tell that Virgil van Dijk was actually offside. They only showed that once. So, yeah, they're checking that. For me, there's an analogy that I like to paint. They said that they were checking the offside because he was offside. They couldn't rule for anything else. If he was running past him and he's offside, then what can he do? Anything? Can he punch the goalkeeper in the face? It also makes me think about the analogy of like a security guard at a bank. People coming in and he's checking IDs, and then a bank robber runs out, but he's not interested in that because all his job is checking the IDs. There's just so much wrong with that assault on him, and I'm just really, really sad for him. It's going to make a massive dent in Liverpool's title chances. Yes, it will.
Yeah, a couple of things on that from my perspective. I've seen a lot of photos and obviously the TV coverage of the, as you call it, the assault. There's one photo sticks out in my mind, and it's just like milliseconds before the challenge actually happened. Jordan Pickford's eyes were nowhere near looking at the ball.
No.
He was looking at Van Dijk. So, everybody's saying he didn't set out intentionally to hurt him. He certainly set out to push him away and get him out of the way so he couldn't reach the ball. So that was one thing in my eyes. And the other thing that has come out in the recent days is that the official, David Coote, has now come out and said he forgot that he could rule on the tackle because he was so concentrated on making sure that the offside call was correct. I mean, we have seen it in the past where players have been sent off, suspended for acts after the ball.
We've seen it this season.
Players themselves, but last season there was, it might have been Son Heung-min stood on the player as he got up, which was after the whistle had gone, and he got sent off. And there was the other one of Lo Celso who stood on the Chelsea player. He didn't get sent off because the VAR didn't consider it bad enough, which was ridiculous. And Lo Celso ended up getting a 3-game ban. So,
I'll give you 2 more. Reece James got sent off a couple of weeks ago after the final whistle for something he said to the referee. There was also the West Bromwich Albion manager, what's his name? The guy that used to... Slaven Bilic got sent off after the game, going up to the referee. That was after the final whistle. Bruno Fernandes got a penalty after the final whistle for Manchester United. So don't tell me that they can't do things afterwards. So it's going to put a massive dent in our title prospects, mate. But if anyone can, Klopp can, as far as finding other solutions.
I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I mean, we're getting Alisson back in goal, and he's proved in seasons, the last couple of seasons, that he can control the back line from where he is. Obviously, he hasn't done it much before because Virgil's been there. But we've got 2 very good centre-backs in Joel Matip and Joe Gomez. Gomez obviously didn't have a great game against Villa, but played very well when he came on to replace Van Dijk at the weekend. There's a lot of young players in there, and also Fabinho can step in, and he will be doing that tomorrow when Liverpool face up to Ajax Amsterdam. Joel Matip has been left behind because Klopp didn't want to play him in two games so close to each other. So that will be an interesting setup against Ajax tomorrow. And there's a young players. We've already seen Reece Williams play in the League Cup games. He looked very confident, very stable at the back. And, of course, Nathaniel Phillips is another up-and-coming local lad who's been playing in the reserve team for a number of years now. And he will probably get some game time as the season goes on. But, come January 1st, I think every club in Europe will know that Liverpool's looking for a centre-back. So the prices are probably going to go up.
Yeah. And interesting to know, though, Matip and Gomez have never actually started a game together. Which is just shows you how much Virgil plays, Plays every single game, doesn't he? So
and even present for the last 2 seasons.
Okay, so we've talked about the assault on Virgil van Dijk. So let's talk about the goal then. The final Jordan Henderson goal. It's ruled out due to a sleeve being a millimetre offside. Not that I could see it at all, man. I've looked at those pictures time and again. I can't see it. When we're checking whose armpit is closer to the goal or whose sleeve is closer to the goal, where is the real advantage here? Does the offside rule need to be rewritten to say something like clear and obvious?
Absolutely. Somebody, I think it was Jamie Carragher or Graham Souness, came up with a brilliant way to decide offsides. I mean, the game is always looking at the offence. I mean, people go along to watch goals being scored. They don't go along to watch, Virgil van Dijk and John Matip stopping teams. They go along to watch goals being scored. And their suggestion was there should be a gap between the last defender and the forward before the forward can be called offside. So all these armpit offsides and trim of a sleeve offsides and toenail offsides, they can be got rid of. The forward can be theoretically in an offside position, but as long as his feet or body are behind something of the last defender, let's just go with that.
Yeah, because we've got to look at the reason offside was brought in at the very beginning of the game. It gives the person an advantage if they're ahead of the defender. If they're ahead of the defender, the one defender. Now, when someone is a millimeter of a sleeve, where's the advantage?
Exactly.
There's no advantage. It should be maybe just forget about the sleeves, forget about everything, just go by the foot, maybe. I mean, maybe that's the thing. That way they can clearly see the foot, whoever's foot's in front. Or for me, is it clear and obvious? Is that clear and obvious? No, it's not. It could be either way. But before we had VAR for the offside, it was always like benefit of the doubt to the attacking team, wasn't it? That's completely gone now, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely gone. If anything, there's benefit of the doubt to the defending team because, just like we said, there's just tiny little bits. So, yeah, I can't see that there's any advantage. I mean, there's just no advantage. So why are we even doing this? Why are we doing this?
The whole reason technology has been brought into sport is to get rid of the howlers.
I know.
And we've seen plenty of howlers not given in all sports.
I know.
Rugby league, cricket, football. Yeah. It's just absolutely crazy. It's just being used badly. And it doesn't help when VARs forget things, forget they can rule on something because somebody was offside, or the goal that Sheffield United scored against Aston Villa at the end of last season that wasn't given because Hawkeye didn't, just because Hawkeye didn't work properly, use your eyes.
We could all see it. I know.
We could all see it on the replay. And another thing Jamie Carragher brought up on Sky Sports, the former Liverpool defender, said he believed that VARs should be retired referees. The likes of Peter Walton, Keith Hackett, Mark Clattenburg, guys that have refereed the game on the field for 20, 30 years. They're the ones David Coote, is this his first season involved at the Premier League level? I've never heard his name before this weekend.
No, more of an academic, I think.
Apparently he has cocked up before, so perhaps he has been around for a bit.
Yeah, I think this gets back to egos with these referees, though, as well. I think the new referees think this is our time now. We don't want an old guy. It's like, well, too bad. Just get the bloody thing right, That's all anyone cares about. Anyway, another football matters. Harry Maguire is sent off for England after 2 shocking challenges, and they go on to lose 1. They go on to lose 1-0 to Denmark at Wembley. Should he even be playing for England at the moment with everything going on? And is Gareth Southgate the right guy as England manager?
I think Gareth Southgate is the right man for England manager. I think he's proven, at the last World Cup when he got England to 3rd, and they've been performing well in qualifying games since. But yeah, old slabhead, I think he just needs to cool his heels a bit on the sideline. Isn't he still wanted in Greece or something like that?
Who's he wanted by? That's the thing. It's hard to say that he's the world's best defender. No, and then he went and scored a goal for Manchester United over the weekend. So maybe he does. Maybe he needs to just play for Man United and just rest his cool his jets for England. Yeah, I think there's just too much scrutiny on the guy. Those were dumb challenges. So obviously his head is elsewhere. What?
Especially the second one, when you knew he was on a yellow card already. No. Why would you do that?
Well, that's the thing. You got to think his head's elsewhere. As far as the Southgate thing goes, mate, I'm not a fan. I just think, Yeah, he did okay in the World Cup, but look at all the attacking talent they've got, and he's playing 2 holding midfielders, a back 3. It's like, mate, where's the attacking intent? I don't know. I just think he's so boring. I mean, yeah, he speaks okay, and he seems to get on pretty well with the young guys, but get rid of him for me. I'd rather have someone like Ari in there. Get a geezer in there, mate. Get a geezer in there.
Yes, well, the All Whites versus England game, speaking of England,
yeah,
was now officially cancelled. And the Aussies have stepped up quickly and said they'll play England instead. What are your thoughts on that?
Typical. Same old Aussies, always stealing. Oh, look, mate, it is what it is, isn't it? I mean, our guys, like we said, if it's COVID times, it's probably best to be safe. The Aussies want to take the risk, let them take the risk. I mean, I don't know. It's just unusual time. It seems quite strange that they stepped in so fast. They must be just about as desperate as us for international football. But yeah, I mean, it's really, really sad. It's a bit sad that your big brother goes and steals your lollies.
Yeah, I think definitely in regards to the Australians, they've got a lot more players playing in Europe that can easily assemble in London than the All Whites have. I think. I mean, we might have 10 or a dozen players playing in Greater Europe at the moment, but there would still need to be a lot of players flown over from New Zealand and Australia. I just think the logistics of it were, it's not like sending a whole All Black team where they're all based in New Zealand to Australia. It's a bit different to that. You're sending players from all over different parts of Europe and New Zealand and Australia. It's in the too hard basket, I think. And I'm sort of hoping that, England have said, okay, maybe not this year, but, let's talk about it again in the years to come when we're hopefully out of this COVID scenario. So, there's hope that that game may eventually go ahead. It would be great to see the All Whites playing England.
Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it?
The night back in 1985, I saw the All Whites play England at Athletic Park, which was the preeminent Wellington Sports Stadium, and they, of course, played up at Mount Smart Stadium to honour New Zealand's centenary, I think it was.
Who were some of the players for the England side that you saw then, Macca?
Well, they had a lot of their top players. John Barnes was in that team.
Fantastic.
David Platt was in that team. I'm just trying to think. I remember David Hurst scored a goal. He was playing for Sheffield Wednesday. Gary Lineker played. He scored a goal. He scored one of the goals in the Auckland game. So they had a lot of their superstars.
Crazy, eh?
It was great to watch there. And the All Whites, certainly, there was a lot of the players left over from the 82 team that played in the World Cup still playing.
Grant Turner.
Newcomers like Michael McGarry and young players like that. So they, I think both games were 2-0 to England from memory. But yeah, great series, great advertisement for the game of football in New Zealand, and good to see all those superstars out here playing against the All Whites.
Yeah, let's see it. Let's see more of it. Hey, final thing on football, mate. Sergio Aguero. Now, I don't know whether you saw this, but during the game yesterday or the day before, he actually put his hand on the shoulder of a sideline official, and it wasn't just any old sideline official. It was the one female sideline official. Should he be doing that? Yeah.
Dan Ellis, I should say.
Yeah. Should he be? He shouldn't be doing that, surely.
He shouldn't be doing that, male or female. He should not be touching any official. It's not part of the game. You can understand probably, why Sergio, the old Latino player, is querying a decision and just thought, I'll put my arm around her and try and gain some sympathy. But yeah, it's backfired on him, and even his manager, I think, has come out and said, you shouldn't probably be doing that, Sergio.
Actually, his manager actually came out and said, no, he is the nicest. This is his actual quote. He said, Sergio is the nicest person I have ever met in my entire life. Don't do anything to him. And I'm like, what? He should still say he shouldn't be doing that. And he came out and almost defended him. For me, mate, look, yes, you shouldn't be touching anyone, but doubly because it's a woman. I mean, you can't just take away the fact that she is a woman. Okay,
Yeah.
she is a woman. You should not be touching a male official. I'm sure if it was a male official, he'd probably be more inclined to complain because she's the only female official. She probably doesn't want to make a big deal out of it because they'll think, oh, it's just because. But she is a woman, you know, and he should know that, you know, you don't go touching women you don't know. Exactly. I mean, Christ, mate, every man in the world should know that. And if you do, one, it's a bit creepy, you know, and two, you're playing sport, it's against the law. Sorry, mate, you should be suspended, but he won't be because he's a nice guy. Oh, I get sick of this. I get sick of this sort of shit as well, man. Oh, you know, he's not that sort of player. He didn't mean it. You know, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
You did it. Doesn't matter what sort of person.
Anyway, I've got one more football one.
Have you?
The Premier League's big picture proposal that we talked about last week. That was quashed by the clubs. But just this morning, there's a new proposal on the table for a European Premier League with the likes of Liverpool, Man U, Arsenal and Chelsea all in favour, apparently, according to the Daily Mail. So are we going to see a European Super League in 2022, which is when they're talking about starting it?
I think eventually we will. I can't see it in 2022. I just think that's too close, mate. I mean, there's just too many logistics. How the hell are you going to run a 18-team Premier League European competition as well? Is the Premier League still going to be going? Or
but it won't have those teams in it.
It won't have those teams in it. So so we're going to take the best teams out of the Bundesliga, Serie A, all of the best leagues. Yep. We're going to take them all out and put them into one league. Yep. And what's going to happen to all the other leagues and all the national sides? What's going to happen to them? No. Look, I'm all for the best teams in Europe playing the best teams in Europe, but that's why we have the Champions League.
Exactly.
I cannot see what the point is of putting all the best teams in one competition. What's the point? I mean, and do we have promotion relegation or no? Look, I'm a supporter of one of the biggest teams in Europe, and I'm not for that.
Yeah, well, just I've got the Daily Mail in front of me here. Apparently, they're saying all you need to know about the £4.6 billion FIFA-backed tournament with Liverpool and Manchester United as key players. Could it usurp the Champions League? And how is it different from the Super League?
FIFA-backed. So FIFA's backing it.
Yeah.
So are they going directly against UEFA?
Appears that way. The competition is expected to involve between 16 and 18 teams and will be played at midweek during the normal European club season. So, yeah, the English teams would still,
would still be in? They'll get rid of the Champions League? I don't know, mate.
It would replace the Champions League, I guess.
It must do.
They're saying, would the top teams leave the Premier League? No, but this is likely to have a seismic effect on the Premier League. Liverpool and Man United are reported to be in talks about joining FIFA-backed tournament, while remaining members of the Big Six have also reportedly been approached.
Yeah. I guess that would mean the end of the Champions League and would mean that you're playing midweek games against whoever, Juventus, AC Milan and Real Madrid.
Jamie Carragher, the former Liverpool defender, Jamie Carragher is obviously not in favour because he tweeted, "Oh, F off."
I'm with him. I'm with Jamie Carragher. Nah.
Yeah. So anyway, we touched briefly on the Champions League. That the group stage got underway today.
Yes.
PSG,
it's on in the background actually.
Man United.
What happened there?
It was 1-1 the last time I saw.
Me too. And if Man United dropped their bundle?
No, they actually got up and won.
Oh!
2-1. Marcus Rashford, a late goal, 87th minute.
You can't argue with that. Marcus Rashford, nice guy. Nice guy.
Lovely
guy. Mind you, if he broke someone's leg, still a nice guy.
Yeah. Barcelona 5-1 winners over Ferencváros. Chelsea and Sevilla 0-0.
0-0.
0-0.
Keep it in goal. I guess Caballero must have been put in goal.
Caballero must have played. And the only other result of note, Lazio beating Borussia Dortmund 3-1. So
really, Lazio have been pants in their league, so that's crazy.
Yes.
They beat Borussia
Games
Dortmund.
tomorrow: Ajax hosting Liverpool, Man City host Porto, and another absolute cracker of a game: Bayern Munich against Atletico Madrid. Should be a very good game, that one. So Champions League's underway, and hopefully we'll get a proper Champions League this year. That would be
absolutely
good to see.
Shall we move to a bit of egg chasing, mate? Shall we go to a bit of big
chasing.
code?
27-7 win for the All Blacks over the weekend, as Ian Foster silenced his critics after the All Blacks thrashing at Cooper's Catch Park on Sunday.
Well, he's kept the Wolves at bay for another week. Let's just put it that way, shall we? I mean, we were talking about it. If he hadn't won this game, I would have, really felt for him. I would have thought, geez, mate, you'll be pushing it uphill with a fork to stay in your position much longer. But no, they did well. They played well, and he deserves to stay there for another couple of weeks at least. I think it's a bit premature to say, look, we should be getting rid of him anyway. But no, they played a good style. Like you said, though, it wasn't. I don't know. Is it fair to say after 2 games that they still don't really look like the All Blacks? They just don't look as accurate for me as the All Blacks. The All Blacks are usually just so clinical. I know the first couple of tests we often say, okay, they are a bit sloppy, so maybe we just need to give it a couple more games. But yeah, I just think they just don't look as clinical as what they normally are.
Yeah, I think the score certainly doesn't belie the actual game itself. I mean, 27-7 was 4 tries to 1, but 3 of those tries were scored early in the second half, in that 10, 15-minute burst. And then after that, I thought once the reserves certainly came on, normally when the reserves come on the park, it tends to give the team a bit of a boost, but it looked to me to have a bit of the opposite effect, and that's when we saw a lot of the mistakes coming into the game after that scoring burst. But some very good signs. Don't get me wrong. I thought Richie Mo'unga was a lot better this week than he was the previous week. Beauden Barrett was absolutely on fire. He was out there with a point to prove. I think his Achilles is okay.
I think so. Yeah.
And the big one for me was the captain, Sam Cane. Do you think he's silenced his critics now and stopped the calls for Lachlan Boshier in the grand traditions of Dwayne Monkley and Marty Holler?
Absolutely. The guy was immense, wasn't he? He reminded me of Richie McCaw.
Yep.
And I mean, that's really the biggest compliment I can pay the guy. He was just awesome. When he first came into the All Blacks, he was a good player, but it didn't seem big enough, strong enough. He just seems so much bigger and stronger now, doesn't he, Macca?
Oh, absolutely.
He's just at the breakdown. His technique is immense. He never misses a tackle.
Yeah.
He just seems to be unbreakable now that he's had his back fused.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate. He's just awesome. Lachlan Boshier, wow, he's doing it a level down, but Sam Cane. Mate, lock it in.
The irony too, all the talk about Lachlan Boshier, the All Blacks named their squad to travel to Australia yesterday, and no Boshier, but Duplessis Kurifi from Wellington has been the travelling squad. So, what has Boshier done that, is
he plays for Waikato, like we said. He plays for Waikato.
Well,
it's in the best traditions,
if that was the case, Fozzie, the ex-Waikato boy, will be calling him up. So I don't think there's any provincial bias.
No, there's not. But I'm just saying, it's always the second best number 7 in the country comes from Waikato. It just so happens both of them from the Waikato. I don't know. I don't know why he's nowhere near the. Ian Foster is pulling a few names left of centre, isn't he? There were a few there over the weekend, but you can't really question him because they're all playing pretty well at the moment.
Another player I was impressed with in his time on the field came off the reserves bench. He was a late call-up to replace Rico Ioane. That was Wellington's Peter Umaga Jensen. I thought he was very strong.
Mate, he didn't make any mistakes. He looked to the manner born, didn't he, really? He just did not look out of place at all, mate. And once again, I would not have even thought of him you know.
Yeah, well, obviously got good lineage, being the nephew of Tana.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not too bad, is it? Not too bad at all.
Another one I'm going to ask you about is Caleb Clark. Has drawn comparisons to Jonah Lomu after his amazing performance. Best starting debut in ages. What are your memories of other great debuts, and who will be the next great All Blacks phenom?
Okay, first of all, Caleb Clark, Lomu-esque, definitely. I thought fantastic. What a player. I've been following this guy for a couple of years. I've been saying it for ages. I mentioned the Lomu word to my wife last year, and she just said, "You're stupid." She watched the test with me on Saturday and said, "Wow, that is like Jonah Lomu. He is just amazing." And I loved when they cut to Ronnie in the stands.
Yes.
And he smiles in the crowd. It was just lovely to see. And Caleb Clark, just such a humble man, just a beautiful man. He's got the world at his feet. He is a superstar for sure. Great debuts. For me, the one that stands out for me has to be Goldie. That's where he got his nickname, Jeff Wilson, 3 tries against Scotland. What a debut that was. Fantastic play. And also, I don't know whether it was his debut, but Christian Cullen, when he first broke into the All Blacks, and just scored try after try after try. And it was like absolutely phenomenal. Also, Joe Rokocoko, when he first broke in as well, try after try, seemed like he was going to score 10 tries a game. Just couldn't stop scoring. So those would be 3 of my more recent debuts. And who's going to be the next one? For me, here you go. Here's one from left field. I don't think anyone's said this. Well, we definitely haven't said it on here. And another son of Nico Williams for me. He hasn't played first-class rugby yet. He is going to be playing for the Sevens. I think he's just out of school this year.
Nico Jones, you mean?
Nico Jones. Michael Jones' son, Nico Jones. He was playing for St. Stephen's last year, and they took away the national championship. He is going to be something phenomenal. So keep a lookout for Nico Jones once I get his name right.
Yes, quite right. And just finally on Caleb Clark, I'm not going to compare him to Jonah Lomu because we've seen too many other players compared to Jonah Lomu in the past, and they've fallen by the wayside. So I'm going to say Caleb Clark is the next Caleb Clark.
Who have you compared to Jonah Lomu before? I've never compared anyone to Jonah before.
Julian Severe was compared by the media to Jonah Lomu. I didn't say it, but there have been, and I can't remember. There was another guy who came along a bit after Jonah, and he played 1 or 2 tests. I can't even think of his name now. Was compared to him, but yeah, Julian Savia is the one that sticks in my mind.
But Julian Savia didn't do too bad, mate. He had a pretty handy record.
He did, but he turned that the age of 27 is the year that apparently the All Black wingers tend to
die.
Well,
that's pop stars. Sorry.
There's a lot of All Black wingers in past years that once they've hit 27, they seem to fall by the wayside. Yeah. Yes.
Well, he's got 7 more years, so
he does. He certainly does. So
that's fine with me.
I hesitate to compare players to the big fella.
Fair enough.
A one-off. Other great debuts. I was going to mention the Christian Cullen one against Scotland under the lights at McLean Park in Napier. It was an unbelievable debut.
It was,
and went on to great things, as we know. Going back a few years, I was always a Mike Brewer fan back in the day, he first played for the All Blacks for the Baby Blacks and just outstanding in those 2 tests against France and scored a try to win the game at what was then Lancaster Park in Christchurch. So,
to be fair, there was about 10 people made their debut that year, that day, wasn't there?
13 new All Blacks, I think.
13, yeah.
Or 12 or 13, I think they brought back Ken Stewart out of retirement to play on the open side, along with, of course, David Kirk and John Kerwin, who decided not to go to South Africa.
I think that was Fitzy's first test too.
It was, yes, quite right. And the other great debut I remember is Craig Innes. When he burst onto the scene for the All Blacks, he was a real phenom, and of course only lasted a few years in Union before he went to the
Became
other side of
posty.
Tasman and became a Manly player. So
He did.
yeah, and again on the Caleb Clark topic, he's the son of Aroni, who was also an All Black. Who are your favourite father-son combos in Kiwi sports?
Jeez, man. Jeez. I suppose you'd have to go Hadleys. You know, you got the Hadleys.
Well, yeah, Walter and the sons.
Yep.
Yeah, quite right.
Yep, Walter, lots of sons. Geez, man, that's a tough one, eh? Because you sort of, they're often, the father's either not that great and then the son becomes great, or the father's are real great and the son never becomes quite so great. So what are some of yours?
Well, there's the one, there's quite a few in cricket have done pretty well. Of course, Lance and Chris Cairns were both very good at the game. Obviously, Chris has a bit of a shady past, but we won't go into that. But yes, both excelled on the cricket field, both in test matches and one-dayers. I've got John and Nico Kerwin. Nico's playing professional football in Europe, so he's done pretty well for himself. And John, of course, needs no introduction. I had also Michael and Nico Jones. Of course, Nico hasn't quite reached the same heights as his father, but we're hoping he will do in the future. And a couple of cricket ones, Ken and Hamish Rutherford, of course, both played for New Zealand. Possibly not with great success. And, of course, Brendan and Doug Bracewell have both played Test cricket for New Zealand. Brendan back in the late 70s and Doug obviously more recently. And a crossover sport, two, a cricket international and a football international, Ian and Jared Smith, of course. So Ian, of course, played cricket and is now commentating on Sky Sport. And Jared Smith played a handful of games for the All Whites back in the late 2000s.
That's good. That's good. I've just thought of a couple more while you've been talking. The McCullums, Brendan, and of course Stu McCullum. He never played for New Zealand, but he was a hard, pugnacious type of cricketer. And Brendan McCullum, of course, and Nathan, his son, and of course the Barretts. Their dads were. That's right. Very good rugby players as well. So there's quite a few father-son combinations. Quite a few. Let's go to motorsport, mate. Should we go to motorsport? Because this is what you watched. That's what you spent the majority of the weekend doing. You delayed the test for it. How did you enjoy Bathurst over the weekend? Give me your thoughts. How was it?
Absolutely fantastic. I started watching a few of the practice sessions on Friday afternoon. Then, of course, switched on to the top 10 shootout on Saturday night. And that was pretty exciting watching those guys absolutely flying around that. That's
crazy, eh?
I love the shootout. That's when you see the cars really flying. And of course, in the race itself, they're 3 or 4 seconds slower than what they can do in the shootout. But
following other cars so bloody slow, just it is, eh? Some of those camera angles.
They are. And the same fences, they're just missing them by absolute millimetres as they go around, and it's just incredible. And of course, Scotty McLaughlin on Friday in practice, he was on an absolute flyer, but just slightly missed the corner and slammed it into the wall on the coming down the mountain. But they obviously got the car ready again for Saturday and Sunday. And but the great race itself was fantastic. I had to laugh. I watch a bit of the supercars during the season, and some of the courses they race on, they say they always come up with a percentage chance of the safety car coming out. And a lot of the tracks around Australia, especially some of the sprint races, it's a 5% chance the safety come out, 10% chance. On Sunday for the great race, 100%
chance
that the safety car will come out. I turned around to Michelle and said, do you think they might be underestimating that?
Hey, on the safety car, mate, because why does it need to come out when a car's in the sandpit and it's off the track? Are we making the sport too Americanized?
Well, it's a bit of a shambles, really, when the car's so far off the track.
Yeah. Why do they need to stop it?
Absolutely not endangering anybody. And, I guess the officials are erring on the side of safety just in case, another car does exactly the same thing at the same speed and ends up crashing into it. But the chances of that are pretty remote. And, when the race is at such a late stage as it was on Sunday, of course, there was still another safety car came out after that with I think it was 9 laps to go when the car was in the sandpit and was absolutely not coming out. Yeah, I thought it was a bit ridiculous, as did Michelle when we were watching it, that, they needed to get the safety car out at that stage. But then, of course, it came out again with only 4 laps remaining.
Yeah.
Just made those last 2 laps ultra exciting.
It did, eh?
I'll be honest, for those last 2 laps, after his performance in the previous restart after the safety car, I was actually quite confident that Van Gisbergen would hold off Cam Waters and take the victory, which he did. Van Gisbergen just rode an absolutely stunning race, did everything right. And it was just a shame that the safety car, you could say, ruined Scott McLaughlin's chances, because it meant that his co-driver had to stay in for an extra 20 laps. They couldn't afford to bring him into the pits at that particular time. So even though Tim Slade did a very good job when he was driving, it was just disappointing that Scotty missed out on those 18 or 20 laps to keep up with the leaders. But great race. And I think they need to revisit some of those safety car visits.
Yeah, Shane Van Gisbergen did hold off the fast finishing the rest of the field, mate. In fact, you could say he held on, couldn't you? Shane Van Gisbergen won one last race for Holden, mate. Their final race. Why does Holden inspire such romance at Bathurst, and what next for the Giz?
Well, I think you see the Giz will be around a bit longer in supercars. Of course, as you say, he was holding on for that win. And, I guess it goes back to the years of Peter Brock and the Holdens. He had the big wars with Dick Johnson and Alan Moffat and the Fords. And, it was always Ford versus Holden, and then that guy Jimmy Richards, came along and he's Volvos.
And, the Swedish bricks.
He called the fans a bunch of pricks, and that was interesting. But it's some of the great Holden drivers over the years have carried on that romance after Brock. Mark Scaife, Craig Lowndes, Jamie Whincup have all got great memories of winning the great race, and of course Garth Tander, who was the Giz's co-driver on the weekend. He has won the great race himself in Holdens in years gone by. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. They're still going to be racing the Commodores next year, but it won't be under the Holden banner. It'll be under the GM Motors banner. And then in 2022, they're going to be racing in the Chevrolet Camaros, which will be exciting.
Which look amazing, don't they?
Mustangs. But a big one for Scott McLaughlin. He's obviously jumped on a plane and headed straight for the States for this weekend's IndyCar showdown in St. Petersburg with Scott Dixon, who leads the championship at the moment. So that's going to be an interesting time for Scotty McLaughlin, getting in a new car, and it's already been set up for him. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. Scott Dixon just leading the championship, not that many points ahead of the second place sitter. So is Scotty Dixon going to be able to do enough to carry on and win the championship, or is the new boy Scotty McLaughlin going to upstage him?
Well, it's going to be bloody good to see, mate. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Scott McLaughlin can do in those cars. They're so different. You're looking at a single-seater, an open-wheeler, as opposed to a saloon car. So different, but from all the experts, I'm no motorsport expert, from all the experts that I'm listening to, they all say that Scott McLaughlin's got what it takes, regardless of what he races. He could be racing a Mini, a go-kart, a Rolls Royce. It wouldn't matter. The guy will always be competitive. He's just a fantastic racer. So it will be so interesting to see. I just hope they give him the right machinery that he can be competitive. Is he likely to get a good car? I mean, he's going to be racing the same as Dixon, isn't he?
Yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, the Penske team often do well, and Scott Dixon's greatest rival, Will Power, drives for Penske. So he gets a good car. So I'm sure that Scotty will get a good car. I think the team owner, Roger Penske, is in love with young Scotty. So I think he'll get a good car. And as you say, it'll be interesting to see. But I think the big thing that starts today for me
Yeah, man.
is this.
It's huge.
The baseball.
The World Series, mate. We have a World Series. We have a World Series. It's on today. It's on today. The best team in baseball all year, the Dodgers, take on the surprise packet. Cinderella story, the Tampa Bay Rays. Who you got and how many games and why? Please,
I'm
Macca.
picking the Los Angeles Dodgers in 6 games. I think they'll just be too strong across the board for the Rays. It's been, as you say, a real Cinderella story for Tampa Bay getting up into the World Series this year. They did make it in 2008, where they lost to the St. Louis Cardinals when they were under the guidance of Joe Madden, who's since led the Cubs to a historic World Series in 2016 and now leads the Los Angeles Angels with the great Mike Trout playing for them. Can't see them making the World Series anytime soon. But no, Tampa Bay, they've certainly played very well to get to this stage. I think the 7-game series that they've just completed against the baseball team from Houston has possibly taken a lot out of them. And, I just think the Dodgers, it's their 3rd World Series in 4 years. And I think unless they want to be referred to as baseball's Buffalo Bills, they're going to have to do something. And it's going to be a big pitching matchup today in Game 1 with Clayton Kershaw on the mound against Tyler Glasnow. So that will be a barnstorming matchup. And Walker Buehler will be... Ferris's brother will be pitching tomorrow, I'm guessing, up against probably Blake Snell. But Charlie Morton's performance across the postseason so far, he's 4 wins, no losses across his postseason history with an ERA of less than half a run per 9 innings pitched. So he'll be probably pitching Game 3. But I just think the Dodgers lineup is going to be too strong with the likes of Mookie Betts, last season's MVP Cody Bellinger, and former Diamondbacks player AJ Pollock. I just think they're going to be too strong across the board with the bats. And as I say, the Dodgers in 6. But I'm probably going to be proved wrong. So
you probably are. Like I say, I was just taking some notes there. LA in 6, so that probably means the Rays in 5 because you're almost wrong. I was hoping for a Westlake series. The Westlake series I was calling the Astros and the Braves because we've got friends that we went to my school, Westlake Boys High School, Clint and Martin. One supports the Astros, one supports the Braves. We were hoping for both of them gone. So I've got no skin in this game, mate. No skin in this game. I'm going for the Rays. Salary comparison, here we go. Yeah. This is because basically this is what you said earlier. You had the LA Dodgers and the New York, whatever their names are, that stink team from New York. You had those two heading to the World Series because they have the most money. Look at the salary comparison. Clayton Kershaw and Mookie Betts, $26 million a year between the two of them. The entire Tampa Bay Rays roster, $28 million.
Yep.
To only $2 million more. I mean, what does that say about baseball and the money? You know, you can have a whole team like that's 50 players for $28 million, and you can have 2 players for $26 million, and yet your team is as good as that team.
Oh, absolutely. And there's great salary disparity right across the league.
Don't get it.
From the likes of the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, and then you talk about the Oakland A's, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Cleveland Indians. In the last series, I think they were saying between Tampa and Houston, the Tampa lineup, just 1 to 9, their salary was $12.4 million. And Jose Altuve's salary alone was 12.6. So that was player against the whole 9 of the Astros.
So do they just pick up these players as they're on their up? They pick them up basically as they're progressing. So they pay them less. And then as they progress, they then ship them off to other teams who pay them more. Is that why the disparity is so...
all the baseball franchises have their own what they call farm systems. Which is all their minor league teams. And when they sign a player out of college or out of high school. He goes into their system, and then once he makes his major league debut, he then has 6 years of arbitration, of salary control. So it depends on his performance. So, for example, 2 years ago, when Aaron Judge was in his second year of playing for the Yankees, he was only earning something like $750,000 a year, even though he hit 54 home runs that year. And even now, in his third or fourth year, might be fourth year, he's probably only earning about 6 or 7 million. And that's all done through an arbitration process. It's when they hit free agency, that's when you start seeing the big numbers. So the likes of the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Yankees have all signed high-profile free agents. Like this year, Garrett Cole, the pitcher who started out at Pittsburgh and then went to Houston, they signed him to a 9-year deal worth $340 million. So
phone book numbers.
Yeah.
Mookie Betts, right?
Mookie Betts just signed a deal with the Dodgers, 10 years for something like $350 million. Mike Trout by the Angels, he was a bit different. He was still in the arbitration process with the Angels, but they obviously didn't want to lose him, so they signed him.
They signed him before the 6-year
contract. So if
it's just so fascinating for me, you know, someone who watches baseball casually, that a team that pays virtually nothing can compete with a team that pays astronomical numbers, you know, and not just compete, they can beat them, you know? Yeah. It's just crazy.
The other thing they do have, you know, as most sports, you know, like especially the Australian ones and a couple of the American ones have salary caps. The Major League Baseball owners would like a salary cap, but the Players Association don't want a bar of it because they want their free agents to be able to earn the phone book numbers. So they have a tax system. So if your payroll's over a certain amount for X number, just arbitrary numbers, if your payroll is over 280 million for more than 2 years in a row, you'll get taxed. So if your payroll is 300 million, you have to pay 20 million back to MLB. And then what happens, that 20 million is then distributed amongst teams with the lowest salary cap. So for example, Tampa might get 50 million of that, you know, money from all the clubs that are over the salary cap.
That sounds, I mean, to me, that sounds great. I mean, to me, that sounds so well organized, so brilliantly thought out. But I would have thought in the States, they'd consider that communism, mate. You'd think, this isn't capital. Hang on, we've got more money. We can afford better players. Instead, they're like, hang on, you're slightly above. We'll give that to the poor. That sounds pretty socialist. Sounds like a pretty socialist system.
Teams like the Yankees have said, we don't care how much you tax us. We've got enough money that we can afford to pay it. Same with the Dodgers and the Boston Red Sox. You know, those big clubs can afford to pay the luxury tax or something. I think.
Such an interesting system.
They don't really care. So, you know, all good to those that can afford it. For those that can't.
Next week at this time, will the World Series be over? Where will we be up to? Wednesday next week.
We'll be all over. 7 days in a row of games.
Crazy. So that's the other thing that I've found quite interesting is that just the taxing on the pitches, it's become a lot more strategic about how you play your pitches. Even if your starting pitch is going really well for 4 or 5 innings, you think, hang on, we're going to pull them out now so that we can come back on 3 days rest rather than, you know, it's become so strategic. I noticed who was it? The Braves had a big blowout. It was like 11, 14 nil at one stage to one of and the other. And I think it was the Rays, wasn't it? And the Rays were like, well, we're giving this game up basically. And they were going to get an outfield player to pitch. So the tactics in the in the World Series this year is going to be quite unique and really, really fascinating.
Anyway,
okay, mate.
We've talked about my favourite sport. Now on your favourite sport.
Go on.
We have our grand finalists. The Penrith Panthers and the Melbourne Storm. How's this one going to go?
Yeah. I hope it's just a good final. I just hope the Penny Panthers turn up on the day and do what they've done all season, mate. They've only lost one game all season. Nathan Cleary's just playing just sublime rugby league. He just does not make mistakes. His kicking game is just on the money. Look, if the Penrith Panthers turn up and do what they've done all year, they'll win. However, the Storm are like just an absolute grinding machine. It is Cameron Smith's final game of rugby league after, like I say, what do I say? 424 games of first grade football, 42 state of origins, 56 test matches. I mean, that's
but
just
is it his final game?
Well, I think it probably is. Yeah, he's been keeping coy about it, but I think the thing that he's been keeping coy about is like he didn't know he was going to make it to the grand final. So he's been wondering each week, I don't want to pull the pin yet. I think the Storm will probably win. I really hope the Panthers win, but Bellamy's just so good. And Cameron Smith, I mean, we'll have a discussion. Let's have a discussion about Cameron Smith. Is he the GOAT? Is he the GOAT of rugby league? I've been giving this a lot of thought. For me, he's the most durable player. He can influence a game perhaps more than anyone. Maybe that makes him the GOAT. For me, I like a little bit more flair in my players. For me, I've always thought Wally Lewis, people like Andrew Johns, even Jonathan Thurston, they're in that playmaker role. For me, they were great at, you see, it's so hard to say great influence because Cameron Smith is just the most influential player. Cameron Smith is the Richie McCaw of rugby league. I think that's probably how you can put it best. He just never goes off. He never gets injured. He's just, you could hit him with a sledgehammer. He'd just come back twice as hard. And he looks like an accountant, for God's sakes. He doesn't look like a rugby league player. So, for me, I think...
What also has to be remembered about those 424 games of first grade football is also refereed those games as well.
Well done, mate. Yeah, and also he's played all 80 minutes in just about all of those games. He's not come off the bench, So when you say he's played those games, that's a lot of rugby league. I would not like to be, I'd like his body, by the time he turns our age, mate, he's not going to be walking too well, I can't imagine. But no, what a player. I hope the Penrith Panthers win, but I've got a sneaky suspicion the Storm might just do it.
I think I might have to agree with you on that one. And as far as I'm concerned, as much as I disliked Wally Lewis when he was a player, I still think he's still the GOAT in my eyes. As much as Cameron Smith has played and has performed and has won, I just think Wally was just one of those players that you either loved him or hated him. And as much as I disliked him, I still hated him for what he did on the park. And
mate, Wally was one of those guys. He was like, I hated him. He played for Queens. He played for all the teams I hate. But my God, he was like watching Gretzky. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the biggest. He wasn't the strongest. But he knew things were happening before anyone else did. It was like he'd put guys through gaps that weren't there. He was just a phenomenal player, influential player. Yeah, for me, Wally's always got to be up there, mate. You'll always, and I think of people like Meninga as well. So there you go. That's what are you going to be watching this week, mate? What are you going to be watching this week?
Yes, well, EPL again will be high on the list. With the mighty Liverpool up against Sheffield United at Anfield.
Yep.
So that'll be a good game. And
how are they going to rob us this time, mate?
Well, who knows? So I'll be watching that. I'll be watching a bit of NPC. The Battle of the Bridge is the game that's probably going to capture my imagination.
Go on, Arbor!
Go on! And also I'll be watching that IndyCar race to see how Scotty McLaughlin does in a completely different type of car, and also hoping that Scott Dixon can stay enough ahead of Joseph Newgarden to wrap up yet another IndyCar title. And despite if he wins that title, he still won't win a Hellberg. But that's a story for another day.
No, I don't think a racing car driver will ever win a Hellberg. just like a football player won't win, and a jockey. You know, you have to play rugby or cricket to win a Halberg, but that's okay. Look, it's just a Halberg. What I'll be watching, EPL and Champions League, of course. We got Liverpool playing Ajax tomorrow. Looking forward to that one in an empty stadium. The poor old Scousers can't travel to Amsterdam. Oh, it would have been a great trip for them midweek, wouldn't it? We're in Amsterdam. I'll be watching the NRL Grand Final, of course. The Panthers and the Storm. We've talked about that. The World Series of Baseball. Can't wait for the Dodgers and the Rays. Go the Rays. And now that the NBA and NHL is finished, I might try and watch some NFL this week as well. I haven't watched too much NFL. I've got a little bit more time in my schedule, so I might try and watch a bit of that too.
Yes, I might also cast my eyes over a little bit of the AFL Grand Final too.
Yes.
The Richmond Tigers up against the Geelong Cats. So it's a very feline affair at the AFL Grand Final. And, of course, it's not being played at the MCG, the first time in hundreds of years that the Grand Final's not been played at the MCG. So that will be an interesting game.
Is that that's been played
closely, but I think
being played in Brisbane, is it?
Yeah, in Brisbane. I think a lot of people are hoping that the Cats might win because it's the great Gary Ablett's final game of AFL this weekend, and he's been a great servant to the Geelong Cats, just like his father, Gary Ablett, was many years ago. There's another father-son combination for you. The two Gary Ablets. And, of course, Gary Ablett Jr., his brother Nathan, also played AFL as well. So I'm going for the Geelong Cats to beat the Richmond Tigers this week.
It's never going to happen, mate. The Tigers all the way. Tigers. I watched the semi-final. The Tigers took out the Lions over the weekend. I watched a bit of that, saw the highlights. Old Dusty doing his thing, and that was a good game of Aussie rules. Actually, it's picked up in the playoffs. During the regular season, I tried to turn it on. I really couldn't get engaged at all. I think having the fans back a little bit has helped, just because I don't think there's any fan as vociferous as an Aussie rules fan. They are just feral, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
They're just like and the closer they can get to the thing, they'll grab them and they'll just like the anger. So anyway.
If you're ever in Melbourne in winter, next time you're in Melbourne in winter, get along to an AFL game.
Absolutely.
You see grandmothers cursing referees and players. It's absolutely stunning.
It never happened at Eden Park, mate. Never happened at Eden Park. Come on, Auckland.
Oh, Blacks. Oh, Blacks.
Oh, black.
Anyway, on that note, we'll be back again next week with another Hot Air Sports podcast with plenty of sport to talk about over the long Labour weekend. And we look forward to your company then. So it's good afternoon from me.
And it's good morning from him. Good night.